What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara, we know he destroyed the brother of Canelo Alvarez, Ramon Alvarez, in 2 rounds. Less than, okay? And they asked him who he wanted to fight. Of course, he wanted Canelo. Of course, he's wanted Canelo since the crazy, controversial decision, right? That night. And they asked him about a few names, and he kind of pondered on them, you know, Jermell or, you know, the rematch with Swift Hurd. And he said Errol Spence Jr. You know, a lot of people might think that's strange because he's at 154. And of course, Errol Spence is at 147, which he's fighting Shawn Porter very soon. Okay. And the thing is, I like this because what happens, you have these fighters that call themselves the boogeymen. Remember Keith Thurman? You know, no one wanted to fight him. Floyd ducked him, yada, yada, yada. Errol Spence, same thing. You know, these guys won't fight him. These guys claim to be injured because they don't want to fight me. I'm Errol Spence. I'm the truth, right? Man down. And this is what happens when you claim to be that guy. When you claim that you are the bad or the best or the boogeyman, when you claim to be. This is what happens. People come and they call you out. He's not the only one that called out Errol Spence. Okay? Keith Thurman, the same thing. Erislandy Lara called out Keith Thurman. Okay? And this was when Keith Thurman was hungry. You know, you better not duck me, son. That Keith Thurman. You know what I mean? He wanted all the smoke, Keith Thurman. That particular guy. Lara called him out. Kind of swept under the rug. No one really talked about that. No one. You know what I'm saying? They just went back to, oh, everyone's ducking Keith Thurman, and we want to see Keith Thurman and Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia, whoever, right? And then eventually those fights were made. But Lara was always that guy like, nah. You know what I mean? It was always just swept under the rug, kept quiet, not really talked about. Okay? Errol Spence, he's the next generation of the guy that claimed to want to fight everyone. Couldn't get a fight with the guys that he wanted to fight. He didn't fight Thurman. He didn't fight Garcia. You know, he's getting a fight with Shawn Porter, but at the end of the day, he hasn't done what he really wanted to do. Now, as a result of that, you got guys that say, well, hey, I'll give you a shot. Won't you come to 154? Jared Swift Hurd did that same thing. He called out Errol Spence. Now Lara's calling out Errol Spence. You know, and then a lot of people think, well, maybe he's cashing out. I don't think that he's cashing out. I think that he wants to show people that Errol Spence is just a guy that if you know how to box and you know how to fight and you know how to deal with Errol Spence, and Mikey Garcia should have showed you everything you needed to know about Errol Spence. He's not as big as a puncher like people think. Lamont Peterson was 140 pounds, okay? If he fights someone his own size, mind you, he might be exploited. He might be defeated, okay? Now, a guy like Lara, honestly, I feel I would give the edge to Errol Spence, honestly, because of his youth. But that's the only reason. You know, they're both southpaws. I would love to see that. I've seen how Lara fights a southpaw when he fought Austin Trout. And this is an Austin Trout in his prime. This isn't the Austin Trout we have today. But the Erislandy Lara we have today is a guy that sits down more on his punches. You know, and he covers up a lot instead of moving laterally to avoid punching. Right? So that fight would be interesting. It'd probably be exciting. But because of that, I would give the edge to Spence. However, that's the actual talks of the fight itself. Will Errol Spence give that opportunity to Lara? I mean now. I don't mean, you know, 2 years from now. I don't mean 2021, January. You know what I mean? But to be fair, Errol Spence has a lot on his plate because he, again, has Al Heyman guiding his career, and he has certain fights that he has already lined up for Errol Spence, you know. But they did ask Erislandy Lara a question, and that's who he wanted. And it just is strange to me that Lara would want that fight. Maybe he knows something we don't. Maybe Errol Spence is, can't make the weight like he used to. In time, I don't think Errol Spence will be able to. You know what I'm saying? He's just, you could tell by his face, he's getting too big for that weight, I feel. I wouldn't go as far as calling him a weight bully, but he's a big welterweight to claim to fight guys way above his weight class. I'll stop Gennady Golovkin. I'll stop Canelo. I'll beat Canelo. But then you're at 147 pounds. So to say that, you have no problem making that weight. Okay? So before people blast Erislandy Lara for calling out Errol Spence at 147, that's not in his weight class, remember what Errol Spence did to other fighters that weren't in his weight class. Okay? So that's what you look at with these guys. You got two southpaws, both experienced. You got that Olympian Cuban pedigree with Erislandy Lara, but it shows me that there's always someone that wants to fight you. So you can never claim that people are avoiding you. Certain people do, but not everyone. And this is another example. Erislandy Lara is a guy that is dangerous. He will fight you. Look what he did to Canelo. Look what he did to Canelo's brother. Look what he did to Paul Williams. Look what he did to Trout. Look what he did to Angulo. And that was a spectacular fight. See, these guys need to understand that when you say no one wants to fight you, remember, you're just asking for people to knock on your door. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Erislandy Lara versus Errol Spence. Could that be a good fight? What do you think about that fight? Could that fight be made since they're on the same side of the street? Right? There's no problem there. Okay? But you guys tell me what you think. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.